Everything changed in a single moment, and it wasn't supposed to go public. What started as a tightly guarded private life around 21 Savage exploded into chaos after an alleged DNA test leak sent the internet into overdrive. Screenshots, rumors, and a reported confrontation pulled Latto into the center of speculation, and within hours, nothing felt clear anymore. The question isn't just what happened, it's how much of this story we still haven't seen. Everything changed in a single moment. The kind of moment that doesn't just shake a relationship, it threatens to unravel an entire reputation overnight. What was once a tightly guarded private life around 21 Savage suddenly became the center of a storm no one saw coming. It didn't start loud, it never does. At first it was whispers, quiet, almost ignorable. Then came screenshots, fragments, half-stories, and within hours the internet was on fire. Because at the center of it all was one claim that hit harder than anything else, a DNA test, unverified, unconfirmed, but impossible to ignore. And what it allegedly revealed. That's what turned curiosity into chaos. Because if even a fraction of it was true, it didn't just raise questions, it rewrote everything people thought they knew, about loyalty, about truth, about what was really happening behind closed doors. And then things escalated. According to circulating reports, his wife didn't stay silent, not even for a second. What began as a private confrontation reportedly turned explosive, voices raised, emotions spilling over, tension that had clearly been building for far longer than anyone realized. What should have stayed behind closed doors suddenly felt like it was breaking through them. But here's where it gets even more intense. Insiders suggest this wasn't just about one moment. It wasn't just about one revelation. This was about layers, secrets, doubts, unanswered questions that may have been quietly stacking up for months, maybe even years. And if that's true, then this isn't just relationship drama. This is something much bigger. Because now the public is split. Social media is dissecting every detail. Every new leak adds fuel but no clarity. And the same question keeps echoing louder with every post, every comment, every theory. What actually happened? And why is it all surfacing now? To understand how it reached this point, you have to go back, before the rumors, before the screenshots, before the alleged test that changed everything. Because moments like this don't come out of nowhere, they build. 21 Savage has always been known for control, not just in music but in image. His story, from a difficult past to global recognition, has been defined by discipline, privacy, and precision. He doesn't overshare. He doesn't invite the world in. And that's exactly why this hits so differently. Because when someone that private becomes the center of something this personal, people don't just watch, they analyze, they question, they fill in the gaps. And in today's world, those gaps don't stay empty for long. On the surface, his relationship always appeared solid, quiet, stable, untouchable even. But now, insiders are painting a different picture, one where small cracks may have existed long before anyone outside noticed. Subtle things, easy to overlook. Until they are. Then there's Latto, an artist who's built her presence on confidence, visibility, and momentum. She's no stranger to attention, and definitely not to headlines. Over time, fans began noticing interactions, moments, coincidences. Nothing confirmed, nothing clearly defined. But that's all it takes. Because the internet doesn't wait for confirmation, it builds its own story. Old clips get replayed, comments get dissected, innocent moments get reframed, and suddenly everything starts to look like evidence. What was once casual speculation slowly turned into something heavier. Online communities started connecting dots, building timelines, debating theories like they were piecing together a puzzle no one officially acknowledged. Meanwhile, both artists kept moving forward. Music dropped, Appearances continued. Public images stayed intact. But behind the scenes, if the rumors are to be believed, tension was growing. Quietly, in conversations no one heard, in decisions no one saw, in moments that didn't make it online. And then came the alleged DNA test. Not through an official statement, not through a controlled release, but through leaks, the kind that spread faster than facts and hit harder than truth. Within hours, it was everywhere. And once it was out, there was no pulling it back. Everything shifted. Trust reportedly started breaking down. Conversations turned strained. Distance began forming, not just publicly but privately. What was once controlled started feeling unpredictable. And the internet. It did what it always does. It went deeper. Fans started revisiting everything. Old interviews, lyrics, social posts, searching for clues that might explain what they now believed was a hidden story finally coming to light. Every word started to feel intentional. Every silence started to feel suspicious. And as the noise grew louder, so did the pressure. Because once a narrative like this takes hold, it doesn't fade, it evolves. It spreads. It pulls in more voices, more interpretations, more speculation with every passing hour. According to insider chatter, the signs may have been there all along. Small inconsistencies. Moments that didn't quite add up. Details that seemed insignificant at first, but over time, started forming a pattern that couldn't be ignored. And if that's true, then this wasn't sudden at all. It was inevitable. What started as quiet questions didn't stay quiet for long. Those questions, according to circulating reports, turned into private conversations. Conversations that grew heavier, more direct, more difficult to avoid. And eventually, those conversations led to confrontation. The kind of confrontation where everything that's been held back finally spills out all at once. Because beneath the headlines, beneath the rumors, beneath the viral speculation, this wasn't just about what people were saying online. It was about trust. It was about loyalty. And it was about the kind of emotional rupture that doesn't simply disappear, even if explanations come later. Sources suggest the shift didn't happen overnight. Long before the public caught even a hint of what was unfolding, something had already changed behind the scenes. Communication, once steady, may have started to feel strained. Small silences may have turned into longer ones. Distance, subtle at first, may have slowly grown into something impossible to ignore. Unspoken concerns don't stay unspoken forever. They build. And by the time the alleged DNA test entered the picture, it didn't just introduce a new problem. It reportedly confirmed fears that had already been forming quietly, piece by piece, in the background. Moments like that don't lead to calm conversations. They lead to explosions. Emotions take over. Words come out sharper than intended. And once they're said, they don't go away, they linger, reshaping everything that comes after. Now, as this situation continues to unfold, one thing becomes harder to deny. This didn't come out of nowhere. It was built, moment by moment, detail by detail, until it reached a breaking point that could no longer be contained. And when that breaking point finally hit, that's when everything shifted into something darker, more intense, more revealing than anyone expected. Because according to multiple unverified accounts, the confrontation itself exposed more than the alleged DNA test ever could. The moment it all came to a head reportedly didn't happen in public. No cameras, no audience, no performance, just a private space ordinary on the surface, but filled with unresolved tension waiting to erupt. And when it did, it didn't hold back. According to circulating insider claims, the wife of 21 Savage didn't approach the situation with hesitation. By that point, sources say she had already seen fragments, pieces of what was being described as DNA test results. Not a full picture, but enough to start forming a conclusion she couldn't ignore anymore. So when she finally confronted him, it wasn't subtle. It wasn't cautious. It was direct. Is it true? That question, reportedly, cut through everything. And from there, the situation escalated fast. Accounts, again, unverified but widely discussed, suggest the response wasn't simple. There were denials, confusion, defensive reactions, the kind of responses that don't calm a situation, they intensify it. Voices rose. Tension sharpened. And within minutes, what began as a question turned into a confrontation neither side could fully control. At the center of it all, the alleged DNA test. Screenshots, unclear, incomplete, and unverified, began spreading across social media, suggesting a possible connection involving Latto. And whether those claims were accurate or not didn't seem to matter in the moment. Because once they were out, they took on a life of their own. Almost instantly, the internet reacted. Fans started dissecting everything. Timelines were rebuilt. Old interviews were rewatched. Past interactions, once ignored, were suddenly analyzed under a completely different lens. Moments that once seemed harmless began to look suspicious. And as that online pressure grew, the reported confrontation behind closed doors became even more intense. Sources claim the reaction wasn't just anger, it was disbelief. A deep, emotional response that suggested this wasn't just about one revelation, but about something that had been building over time. And then came the first major twist. Because according to one particularly controversial leak, the DNA test may not have been the true starting point at all. Instead, it may have been the confirmation. Rumors began circulating that there were prior conversations, private, undisclosed moments, that hinted at underlying issues long before any test was ever mentioned. If that's true, then the narrative shifts completely. Because that would mean the test didn't create the conflict. It exposed it. And that distinction changes everything. What looked like a sudden explosion may have actually been the result of long-standing tension finally reaching the surface. As emotions escalated, the tone of the confrontation reportedly shifted. Questions turned into accusations. Attempts at clarification turned into arguments. And confusion turned into outright conflict. At one point, according to unverified accounts, the situation became so intense that others nearby had to step in, whether to calm things down or simply to prevent it from going further. But even when the confrontation began to settle physically, the emotional damage didn't. Because moments like that don't end when voices go quiet. They stay. They echo. They change how people see each other moving forward. And almost immediately after, sources claim communication broke down. Messages reportedly went unanswered. Calls avoided. Silence, once a sign of privacy, started to feel like distance. But what happened behind closed doors didn't stay there for long. Because as soon as details of the confrontation began leaking online, everything shifted into public view. Screenshots started circulating. Anonymous posts began appearing. Threads claiming insider knowledge gained traction at an almost uncontrollable pace. And just like that, a private situation became a global conversation. People picked sides. Some defended 21 Savage, arguing that nothing had been confirmed and that the internet was building a narrative without real evidence. Others pointed to the alleged DNA test leaks as proof that something deeper was going on. And then there were those who questioned everything, suggesting the entire situation might be misinterpreted, manipulated, or even completely inaccurate. But despite all the debate, one thing remained clear. Nothing was resolved. Because just when it seemed like the confrontation had reached its peak, a second layer of information began to surface, one that complicated everything even further. According to newer circulating claims, the DNA test itself may not have been as straightforward as people initially believed. Instead of a single, clear result, multiple versions of the alleged findings began appearing online. Some suggested confirmation. Others hinted at inconclusive outcomes. And a few raised an entirely different question, whether the test being referenced was even properly verified at all. That inconsistency changed the narrative again, because instead of clarity, it created confusion. Instead of answers, it raised more questions. And in an environment like that, speculation doesn't slow down, it accelerates. Meanwhile, the narrative involving Latto intensified. Her name began trending across platforms, pulled into a story that still lacked official confirmation. Fans revisited old clips, interviews, and interactions, trying to connect dots that may or may not have been connected in the first place. And then came the full social media explosion. Viral threads, some detailed, some questionable, began spreading rapidly. One widely shared post claimed, "This isn't just about a test. It's about timing, communication, and things people chose to ignore." Another suggested the confrontation wasn't sudden at all, that it was the result of weeks of tension building behind the scenes. Whether those claims were accurate didn't stop them from gaining traction. Because in moments like this, momentum matters more than verification. At the same time, industry reactions began to shift. According to insider chatter, people connected to both sides started pulling back, some quietly, others more noticeably. Public comments became rare. Statements, when they did appear, were vague, focused on privacy rather than clarity. And that silence, it only made things louder. Because when there's no clear denial and no clear confirmation, the space in between gets filled with speculation. And that's exactly what happened. What started as a personal situation evolved into something much bigger, a full-scale online debate. People weren't just watching anymore. They were analyzing, theorizing, investing emotionally in a story that kept changing in real time. Some argued it was all being exaggerated. Others believed there were too many details for it to be coincidence. And behind all of it, the real situation, the one away from screens and speculation, continued to unfold. Because while the internet debated, the alleged consequences behind the scenes didn't pause. Relationships don't reset overnight. Trust doesn't rebuild instantly. And moments like this, they don't just pass. They leave a mark, which raises the biggest question of all. Is this the end of the story? Or just the beginning of something even deeper? Sources suggest that whatever once held the relationship together may have already started to break. Trust, arguably the foundation of everything, was reportedly hit the hardest. Conversations became shorter, less frequent, more careful. And over time, that silence didn't feel peaceful anymore, it felt heavy. Distance grew, not loudly, but steadily. The kind of distance that doesn't show up in public photos, but becomes impossible to ignore behind closed doors. What once looked stable from the outside, it may have already been under pressure long before anyone realized. And then came another twist, one that made the situation even more complicated. Because according to one particularly shocking leak, the confrontation didn't just reveal emotional tension. It may have exposed something deeper, something more confusing. A timeline that didn't fully add up. Allegedly, the sequence of events tied to the DNA claims doesn't align perfectly with what people initially believed. Certain dates, certain moments, certain assumptions. When placed side by side, they raise questions that don't have clear answers. And that inconsistency, it changes everything. Because now the conversation isn't just about what happened, It's about when it happened, and whether the version of events being shared publicly is complete. Some insiders suggest the information circulating online may only be fragments, pieces of a much larger story that hasn't fully surfaced yet. Others believe key details are still being intentionally withheld. Either way, it leads to one unavoidable question. What aren't we being told? And as that question grows louder, so does the speculation. Every day, new claims emerge, none fully verified, each one adding another layer, sometimes clarity but more often confusion. Contradictions begin to appear, narratives shift. What seemed certain one moment becomes questionable the next. Some reports claim there were additional conversations after the confrontation, conversations that may have changed the tone entirely. Others suggest third parties may have gotten involved behind the scenes, adding even more complexity to an already tense situation. And then there are whispers that more information could surface at any moment, something that could reshape everything all over again. But right now, nothing is confirmed. Just rumors, leaks, interpretations, and a rapidly evolving narrative that feels impossible to pin down. Because stories like this rarely reveal themselves all at once. They unfold slowly, piece by piece, and often when people least expect it. Just when the public starts to feel like they understand what's happening, something new appears, and suddenly, everything feels uncertain again. That's exactly what's happening here. Because as the story surrounding 21 Savage continues to spread, the internet hasn't just reacted, it's divided. What started as curiosity has turned into a full-scale battlefield of opinions. Within hours of the alleged DNA leak and confrontation reports, social media exploded. Platforms like X, Instagram, and TikTok filled with reaction videos, breakdown threads, and deep dive analyses. Everyone trying to make sense of a story that still doesn't have a confirmed version. And almost immediately, people chose sides. On one side, supporters of 21 Savage are pushing back hard. They argue that the entire situation is being exaggerated, that unverified leaks, anonymous sources, and questionable screenshots are being treated as facts without real evidence. Many are urging patience, warning that jumping to conclusions like this can damage reputations in ways that can't be undone. On the other side, critics aren't convinced. They point to the consistency of the rumors, the way similar claims keep appearing across multiple platforms, as something that's too aligned to ignore. For them, the reported confrontation itself suggests that something serious is happening behind the scenes, regardless of what's officially confirmed. And caught in the middle of all of this, Latto. Her name continues to trend, pulled into a narrative that still lacks direct confirmation. Some fans defend her, calling the speculation invasive and unfair. Others believe her connection to the situation is being deliberately avoided in public conversations. But without clear statements, the speculation only grows. And then came another wave, viral posts. Unverified, anonymous, but everywhere. One widely shared thread claimed, "This isn't just about a test. It's about timing, communication, and things people ignored for too long." Another suggested that what happened wasn't sudden at all, that it was the result of weeks, maybe months, of tension building behind the scenes. None of it confirmed. All of it spreading fast. Thousands of shares, endless replies, entire discussions built around posts that may or may not be real. And as expected, content creators jumped in next. YouTube channels and commentary pages began releasing breakdown videos, analyzing timelines, revisiting old interactions, highlighting supposed inconsistencies, dramatic thumbnails, bold titles, urgent tones, each one adding more fuel to an already growing fire. But not everyone is feeding into it. Some voices, more cautious, more measured, have stepped back, reminding audiences that not everything trending online reflects reality. They point out how quickly false narratives can take hold, especially when emotions like betrayal, loyalty, and trust are involved. Still, those voices are quieter, because uncertainty drives attention. And right now, uncertainty is everywhere. With no official clarification addressing the DNA claims directly, the situation remains wide open. And that lack of clarity is exactly what keeps people engaged. People keep debating, keep analyzing, keep searching for answers that may not even be fully available yet. Because at this point, this isn't just a rumor anymore. It has become a moment, a reflection of how fast stories can form, spread, and evolve in the digital age, especially when they involve private lives suddenly pulled into public view. But even with all the noise, all the reactions, all the theories, there's one final detail that continues to hover over everything. Something insiders keep hinting at. Something that hasn't fully surfaced. A piece of information that, if it's real, could completely change how this entire situation is understood. Right now, it's just a whisper, a possibility. But if it comes out, it could shift the narrative all over again. Because according to those same quiet rumors, the most shocking part of this story hasn't been revealed yet. Just when it felt like the situation surrounding 21 Savage had reached its peak, when the noise couldn't get any louder, when every angle had already been debated, a new layer reportedly surfaced. And this time, it didn't just add to the story. It complicated it. Because according to a fresh wave of insider leaks circulating online, the DNA test that sparked this entire controversy may not only be questioned in terms of authenticity, but also in terms of context. In other words, the issue might not just be whether the test is real. It's whether people even understand what they're looking at. Sources now claim that what's been shared publicly could be incomplete, just fragments of something much larger. Not a full narrative, but pieces pulled from a broader chain of private conversations and undisclosed events that haven't been revealed yet. And that's where things take a serious turn. Because if that's true, then everything people have been reacting to might only be part of the story. Not the whole picture. Not even close. According to these same rumors, the confrontation between 21 Savage and his wife wasn't triggered by a single moment. It wasn't just about a test. It was about a sequence, a build-up, a series of discoveries that unfolded over time, each one adding pressure until something finally broke. The DNA claim. That may have been just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. And maybe not even the most important one. What's even more revealing is what allegedly happened after the confrontation. Because according to insider chatter, the initial explosion wasn't the end of it. There were more conversations. Private ones. Conversations that never made it online. Ones that reportedly involved attempts to clarify what was real, emotional moments where everything came to the surface, and efforts to regain some kind of control over a situation that had already started slipping away. But here's the part that stands out. Those conversations didn't fix anything. If anything, they may have made things more uncertain. Because instead of resolving the tension, they reportedly introduced even more questions. Questions without clear answers, explanations that didn't fully explain, and emotions that didn't fully settle. At the same time, the narrative involving Latto continues to dominate online discussion. But even that is starting to shift. Because newer rumors suggest her alleged connection to the situation may not be as simple or as direct as it was initially portrayed in viral posts. Some insiders now claim that timing confusion, misinterpreted interactions, and fragmented leaks may have created a narrative that doesn't fully reflect reality. And if that's true, then the public reaction so far might be based on an incomplete version of events, a story still evolving in real time. And then came the detail that reignited everything. A final leaked message, unverified but spreading fast. According to those who claim to have seen it, the message hints at something bigger still waiting to surface. Something that could either confirm what people suspect or completely dismantle it. What's been seen so far? Allegedly just the surface. Not the full story. Not even the most important part. Whether that message is real or not almost doesn't matter at this point, because its impact is already being felt. Curiosity has spiked again. Debates have intensified. And the narrative has shifted once more. Because this is no longer just about a confrontation. It's no longer just about rumors or a disputed test. Now, it's about the possibility that there's still something hidden. Something deeper. Something that hasn't been revealed to the public yet. And as long as that possibility exists, the story isn't over. Not even close. Now, people are questioning everything they thought they understood. Was the DNA claim ever accurate? Was the confrontation driven by facts or by suspicion? And the biggest question of all, is there another revelation still waiting in the shadows, one that could change everything again? Right now, there are no clear answers. Just speculation, fragments, and a growing sense that something bigger may still be coming. Because if situations like this have shown anything, it's that the final twist rarely feels final. The truth doesn't always arrive all at once. Sometimes it shows up when no one expects it. And when it does, it changes everything. So now it comes down to you. Do you think the DNA test rumors are real? Or has this entire situation been amplified by speculation, misinterpretation, and unverified leaks? And what about the reported confrontation involving 21 Savage? Was it justified? Or are we still missing key pieces of the story? Drop your thoughts below, because this is one of those moments where every perspective adds something, and the conversation is far from over. If you've been following this breakdown, make sure to like the video so more people can find it, and subscribe to stay updated, because if there's one thing that's clear, it's this. This story isn't finished, and when the next piece drops, you'll want to be ready.